Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, just Daf It. Today we're doing Nedarim, Daf Nun Tet, number 59. A great share for you today. We're still in the middle of this complicated sugya about whether Gidulin, extra gross, or Matir, the Iker, or Asr, the Iker. Do we invoke the rule of Bittul Barover now? We'll talk more about today. About Davar Sheish Matir and Davar She'en Matir, and there's famous machlokas in the Rashi and the Ran here on Daf Nun Beis. How does Davar Sheish Matirin work? Why do we say Davar Sheish Matirin? We say Afilu Be'elef Lo Batel. It's not batel even 1,000. There's two different main reasons. I heard this Hakira, this investigation, in my early years of learning when I was 18 years old. All right, Yaakov Koningsberg and YU. Let's get started. Mesiv Rami Barachama, the last word of the first line. Mesiv Rami Barachama, Konam Peiros Elo Alai Konim Hin Alpi Konim Hin Lipi Asr Bichilufein B'Kilayan. This is a Mishnah we had earlier on. He says these peiros are asr on me. He specifies these peiros. So he's asr not only in the fruits themselves, but also whatever he exchanges it for. And if he plants the seeds of these fruits and they grow, he's asr in the gedulim. Shani ocha v'ashni toem. However, if his language is that he doesn't specify the entire fruit, he says, I'm not going to eat these fruits, I'm not going to taste from the fruits. Mutter b'chilufein or gedulein. He's mutter what he exchanges it for. And when it grows, he's only talking about tasting these exact fruits. However, that only applies by a fruit or vegetable that if you replant it, right, the seed decomposes before it regrows. Like an onion, famous case like an onion, a bulb of an onion, you replant it, it continues to grow. The bulb of onion doesn't decompose. It just continues to grow out of that bulb of onion. Even if you said Shani Ochal Shani Tom, that's a simple explanation. The Gedule, even though you replanted it a second time, it would still be Aser. Now, Gedule, probably the growths are more than the actual bulb of onion that you planted the first time, you replanted the first time. Why do we say Gedule and Gedule? What shouldn't we say? That the rove of Heter, right, the Gedulim are Heter, shouldn't even Mavatel the Isser. So the Gemara says, "Amar Rabbi Abba, shiny konam was holy boy Mitchell alayu." Nadarim are different. Nadarim are different. We haven't talked about Nadarim yet. We're talking about Truma, Shvius, Kilayim, Orla. Now we're talking about Nadarim. Nadarim are different. If you buy Mitchell, I have a Kedar Sheish Matir, and they're like a Kedar Sheish Matir, and they're going to be mutter at some point in the future because I could always be show all of my nether. I can say go to a chacham, and I can say I didn't intend to make this nether, and in that case there is no isser over there. So the common svara of Davar Sheish Matirin is like Rashi and Beitza on Dav Dalid, where he says Davar Sheish Matirin. Rashi says Hashtochlenu be'isser, tochlenu be'eter, right? By muksa he's talking about over there. Muksa is only asr on Shabbos. Tomorrow on Sunday is not going to be muksa, so wait. That's why muksa is not batel afilu be'elef. Wait till tomorrow, because tomorrow will be mutter, so that you don't need bittul anymore. So don't rely on bittul when you have the possibility of not relying on bittul. There's a different svara. I'm going to quote the Ran. I'll talk about this Ran in Yonot Ben Sion further, but the Ran says a little different svara. The Ran says the reason Davar Sheish Matirin is not batel afilu be'alef is because since it's close to being mutter on Shabbos, it's us or muksa, but tomorrow it's mutter. So therefore, it's close to being mutter. So therefore, we view it, right? We view it as already on Shabbos. We view it as already mutter. So he uses a very interesting svara. He says since it's already kimat, it's already mutter. So therefore, you have iser and heter, and min. You have heter and iser mixed together as min b'she'eno mino. Min b'she'eno mino. A lot of times it's not batal. Min b'mino is easier to be mavatal. Min b'mino, right? When you have iser and iser, that's min b'mino. But when you have heter, because it's going to be mutter tomorrow, so that's min b'she'eno mino. This is totally in how you understand then min b'mino, min b'she'eno mino. But min b'she'eno mino is harder to be mavatal. That's the Ran svara. Just throwing that in over there as an introduction to Yonot Ben Sion, a wild Yonot Ben Sion today. I think people are really going to enjoy it. And you basically take Rashi and the Ran and add clothing to the Rashi and the Ran, not just Ralph Lauren clothing, Gucci clothing, Louis Vuitton clothing. All right. So Gemara says, Havu Gedavar Sheish Matir, and Main Batal Barov, it's not Batal on Rov. It's right, technically, yes, you're right, the Gedul are Mutter. There's no Batal Barov over here, Gedavar Sheish Matir, and where's very Truma? Truma also. We've talked about Truma. We talked about Truma, the Gedul are Mavatal, the Iker. The boy Mitchell Allah, Batli Barov. They are Batal Barov. This non sa Truma Tmeya Shnafel the Pachos Meya Chulin. This Mishnah, I believe, in Masechah Trumos. Even if the Truma is Tmeya, that's why it says Truma Tmeya. Even if it's Tmeya, it fell into 99 parts of Chulin. Tarakiv, you have to let it rot. Because there's no bittul. Bittul of Truma is 1 in 100. Now, normally if it's Truma Tahora, we'll see, right? You can sell it to a Kohen because he could eat the Truma. But if Truma Tmei, he can't even use the Truma. And maybe he could use it for burning, but there's a problem of waiting around too long. So therefore you have to let it rot. Halameya, Tala, however, it falls 1 to 100, right? It's Batal. Amri B'Truma, the Yad Kohen, so you see Truma is Batal, even though it's a Dover. Because technically, if I mafresh truma, I can be shoal on my truma. I go to a chacham and say, I didn't intend to make this part truma, and then obviously I have to take a truma from a different part, a different apple or a different piece of wheat. So whereas I'm a truma biyad kohen askina. No, this bish is talking about the truma is in the hand of a kohen. The reason it's batel is davar she'ein lo matirin, because once I give the truma to a kohen, it's not in my possession anymore to say I didn't want that to be truma. If you'll say that's the case, we're talking about it already in the hand of the Kohen, say the end of the Mishnah. If the Truma is Tahora, Timaker the Kohen, then you could sell it to the Kohen. So you see what? You still own it, right? Obviously, if you can sell it to a Kohen, it means the Yisrael still has it. Elabi Yisrael, the Gemara says, no. The Mishnah is talking about Yisrael Shenafalo Beis Avi Imo Kohen, right? His grandfather, his mother's father was a Kohen, right? His mother's father was entitled to Truma. He died. So the grandson inherited through his mother this truma. So really, it was already in the hands of a Kohen. That's why he owns the entire thing, even the truma. So he can sell the entire thing and not deduct the truma. Hakdani seifa, but the seifa of the Mishnah says Timaka the Kohen chusmin meos to sell. It says you sell it to the Kohen except for that sell. And if it really belonged to him entirely, then you could sell the entire thing. Ela ema, so must be talking about it. It's still in the hands of Yisrael, and he didn't give it to a Kohen yet. Ela ema. Bishlama, the difference is konamos mitali chulei alan. It's not just that by nedarim, it's a possibility of being mater neder. There's a mitzvah. You're supposed to be mater neder. Anyone who takes a neder, it's like he built a bama, a mizbech outside the base of mikdash. Anyone who keeps the neder, fulfills the neder, or who stays usher to a certain thing, it's like he was makdir, like brought a korban on the bama, which is doubly bad. Truma, my mitzvah leid shulei Allah. However, truma, the point of truma, your mafresh truma, you're supposed to give it to the kohen. So it's counterproductive to be matir your truma, because then you still have to take out something else for truma. So there's no reason that's considered. So the Gemara makes a big chiluk. The Gemara says nedarim is considered davar sheish lo matirin, because you're supposed to be matir neder. Truma is considered a davar she'ein lo matirin. We're going to talk more about this chiluk in Iyod Ben Sion. Gufa Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Litra b'tzalim shetikna v'zara misaseres levikula." You have a liter of onions. Displaced liter of onions. Liter is obviously a measurement of volume. Shetikna v'zara, right? You took out shunas and ma'ishos, and then you replanted it. Misaseres levikula, right? Again, even though the gross, right, outnumber the original liter of onions, right? You have to take out shunas and ma'ishos, even the original part. Yasi Rabba, Rabba was sitting down. He said this teaching of Rabbi Yochanan. Amalei Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda said, "Man tzayis lach Rabbi Yochanan Rabba." Who's going to listen to you? And Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi heter shrein lehechan halach. Right? What about the heter? Right? The heter litra b'tzalim shetikna. Right? You already took up shumas and ma'asos. Let's say it was 1 part liter, and then 10 more litarim grew. So only for the 10 litarim that grew, you take up shumas and ma'asos. The 1 liter of b'tzalim was already pater. Right? Why do we say that the Isser, in this case the Chumrah, right? The Gedulim are Mavatel, the Heter, and make it Asr. Amalei Milos Tante Kavasa. He said, what do you mean? We have a mission like that. But Solam Jardolem Geshamim Simple. Again, we talked about this mission yesterday. You have onions that were grown during the 6th year, and they were left in the ground in the 6th year. They weren't harvested. And then the 7th year came, and the rain fell during the 7th year. It was simple. And they grew even more on top of Nun Tenam and Beis. Asurin. If the leaves, right, the growths of them were black, so Asurin, seemingly at this point, the Gemara assumes the whole onion is aser. Horiko, if they're pale, the growths are pale, mutarin, right? If it's black, so therefore it's indicative that it's a further growth. If it's black, it's not exactly black, it's like a darkish green. So therefore we assume that the gidulin that happened during the 7th year are an extension. They came from the actual ikar, the main part of the b'tzalim that grew during the 6th year. If it's pale, so it's an independent growth. If they're black, it's right more growth during the 7th year. Why is it asr? Why don't we assume that part of it was grown during the 6th year? So you see what? That we do say such a thing, that even the chumrah, that the growth, if it outnumbers the ikar, is mavatal, and it makes it asr. You think this Mishnah was talking about that the part of the onion that grew during the 6th year is asr? A tosefes katani. It just says if they're shchorin, asurin, meaning the tosefes is asr, but the ikar is not. Ihachi mayasa or if that's true, that's the correct interpretation of the Mishnah. What is Rosh Gamliel coming to teach us? Where do we see Rosh Gamliel? The Sanu of Brisa. Rosh Gamliel Omer Hagadol b'chiyav chayav. Hagadol b'pater. He says exactly this: that which grew during Shvius is aser, and it's just pater, and that which grew during Shishis is mutter. So the Gemara answers: Tanakama nami hachi amar kula masnisin Rosh Gamliel kasani. Rosh Gamliel was the author of that Mishnah, right? And the Brisa he just explained. He said his name, who he was. The Gemara resolves this. Even if you want to say that this Mishnah is like Rosh Gamliel, you could still align it with Rabba's teaching earlier, who was the same thing as Rabbi Yochanan, who held like Rabbi Yochanan, who was the Rebbe of Rabba. The Lokat Tarach. Rosh Gamliel said this with the Lokat Tarach. Well, you're in Toreach. Aval Hecha de Katarach Batil Beruba. Right? This Mishnah is talking about where it was grown during the 6th year. And it just stayed in the ground on the 7th year. The ground is stayed on the ground on the 7th year, so therefore we don't say the Gedulin encompass and are mavatel the heter to make it aser. However, when you go ahead and replant something, right, exactly like the liter of basala of onions that was taken off Shumas and Maisos, and you replanted it, so then it's mavatel, it's a new growth, and you say even bittul barov le'iser. So the Gemara continues to ask questioning. Anytime you're Tareach, you replant something that's batal barover, right? Litra meiser, tevel. Let's say you have meiser. I assume it's meiser rishon, which is tevel, which you didn't take off Truma's meisros. We didn't take off, Truma's meiser. It's supposed to be given to a kohen. The katarach, right? V'katani, v'osa litra meiser alav b'makom ha'achar lefi cheshbon. Right? We had this Mishnah earlier on, right? You have a liter of meiser, of tevel. You replanted it, right? And nonetheless, right, even though you replanted it, we view the growth independently, and we view the meiser, right? The meiser already had, right, truma gedola taken off of it. It just didn't have trumas meiser. So therefore, we view them independently. We don't assume bittul barov l'chomra. So the word shiny gabi meiser is different. I'm gonna call aser to aser, a gomer. It says the word aser, a double lashon. So why does it say a double lashon? It's referring to a situation where you replanted. Take off Shumas Meiser where you replanted. Hey, Tera Zari Inshi, right? Something which is mutter, people replant. Isur Zari Inshi. Aser is not, you don't usually replant. So therefore, there's an obligation to take off Shumas Meiser a second time, meaning basically that you would say bittul barov l'chumra. That's only when you replant heter. When you replant something which is aser, which is tevel, meiser rishon, which you didn't take off shumas and meiser, you didn't take off shumas meiser, so therefore it's tevel. In that case, we don't assume that there's bittul barov l'chumra, and we view each independently. That's the conclusion of today's shir. Stay tuned for a unbelievable, I think it's going to be unbelievable, Ian with Ben Zion, where we talk more about these two things, Shvius and Nedarim, Konamos, where we basically assume that when you're katarach, right, when you do something, we invoke the rule of bittul barov. Sometimes we invoke the use of bittul barov, and sometimes we don't. Right? By konamos, the reason you would invoke bittul barov, you would not invoke bittul barov. It's called the davar sheisham atirin, right? Because it'll become mutter because you're supposed to be mater nether. We'll talk more about that the difference in konamos and shvius versus things like truma and orla and kalaya kerem. Iyot ben Sion coming up next.